We're counting down to the Harris-Trump debate, and my next guest is a former 2020 Democratic presidential candidate and congresswoman who endorsed Trump this week and is helping him prepare for that debate. Here with me now is former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Thank you so much for being here. Vice President Harris's campaign manager released a memo this morning saying they expect former President Trump to be a, quote, formidable opponent on the debate stage. Do you think Kamala Harris will be a formidable opponent as well? And how is the former president preparing to debate her?
Yeah, I think Kamala Harris has a lot of experience. She is not to be underestimated. President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris have very different records. This is a unique situation where we have two candidates who have served at the highest offices in the land. President Trump, 4 years as president. Kamala Harris, now almost 4 years as vice president, working alongside President Biden. And so this will be an opportunity for voters to look at and compare and contrast those records. If I can be helpful to President Trump in any way, it really is just in sharing the experience that I had with her on that debate stage in 2020, and frankly, helping to point out some ways that Kamala Harris has already shown that she is trying to move away from her record, move away from her positions, and how that contradicts the positions and statements that she is making now that she is the Democratic nominee.
And it is a remarkable situation in that you are a Democrat who debated her in a Democratic primary, and now you are helping the Republican nominee to debate her. And on that, I remember in 2020, you attacked Harris for being too aggressive as a prosecutor, which is the opposite from what Donald Trump is saying about her as weak on crime. So which is it?
What I pointed out in that debate stage in the 2020 campaign was her hypocrisy. It was how she was saying one thing and doing another, how she was prosecuting people for smoking marijuana and laughing about it when she was asked about it on a radio show. And I think this goes to the heart of many of these different issues that we're seeing now that Kamala Harris is trying to hide from voters, is how she says her position is one thing, but her actions and her record show exactly the opposite. And you can point to that on issues related to the economy, issues related to freedom of speech. She says she stands for freedom of speech. And yet, as we've seen time and time again, her and Joe Biden have taken actions both directly and indirectly to censor free speech. Most recently, I can point to my own experience of this, of how the Harris-Biden administration have added me to a secret domestic terror watch list the very day after Kamala Harris was endorsed by Joe Biden. And I was on TV and warning the American people about what I saw as the dangers of a Kamala Harris presidency, taking action that was clearly political retaliation. They've done this to a lot of different people, which points to how dangerous it is to have people in power so willing to abuse that power to go after political opponents.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the secret terror watch list. We're definitely going to follow up on that. But I do want to move on to what is happening with regard to controversy after the former president visited Arlington National Cemetery this week. His campaign took photos and video of him in Section 60, where veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are buried, used it in a campaign video. The Army also says that Trump staffers abruptly pushed aside a cemetery official who tried to enforce Arlington's rules prohibiting political activities. I know you were with Trump at least earlier in that day at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Did you witness the altercation at Section 60?
I was there from the beginning with the laying of the wreaths with the family members, the Gold Star family members, and some of the survivors of that terrorist attack in that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. I was with them at Section 60, and what I saw was a very grave and somber remembrance and honoring of those lives that were lost. And I saw President Trump spending time at the invitation of these Gold Star families with them. He was there for a few hours. I did not see or hear about any kind of altercation until something came out in the news later on. The families were there grieving alongside President Trump, and And it was a very special moment to really remember their names, remember their memories, and understand the true cost of war and the consequences of the decisions that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden made in the execution of that withdrawal.
Yeah, and it is very clear that the former president was invited in his personal capacity, as you said, by a family of one of the service members who was killed about 2 years ago during the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
It was 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
3 years
Thank
ago
you. Thank
to
you
the
for
day
correcting
on
me.
August 26th.
Yes, 3 years ago. The question is about the federal law and Arlington's rules that prohibit partisan or political activities at national cemeteries. And the military and also other members of other families who are buried right near there are upset about the campaign filming it and posting the video online. Do you believe that was appropriate?
You know, I checked with the campaign on this question, and they have exchanges with the officials at Arlington Cemetery. They were approved to bring a camera there to document this historic and momentous day that should not be forgotten by any American. And to have a former president there and joining these Gold Star families, I know President Trump wanted to share that with others, especially given the fact that President Biden and Harris, I heard, were invited by some of these family members. They not only didn't come, they didn't even respond to that invitation. And now to have Kamala Harris put this statement out yesterday saying that she stands with these families, she stands with the military and with veterans, you only have to look at the response that came from the Gold Star families of these 13 service members of how offended they were by that statement, given she has not made any effort, not on that third anniversary or any other time, to call them directly to offer her condolences and even apologies for their decisions that led to the loss of their loved ones.
Do you think that the campaign will release that communication that you're talking about? Because the Army is saying very clearly that they broke the rules because it was clearly put out online, pictures, video, meant as a part of his campaign.
I thought they already had. I was informed that they had come to an agreement. They could bring a camera there. And as far as I know, and the public statements I've seen from the Army, is that the matter is closed.
I think the matter is closed about the altercation, alleged altercation, which you didn't see, but I'm not sure it's closed with the idea that they seem to have broken the rules and perhaps even federal law by putting out the campaign video. I want to ask you about...
I just like to say one last thing on this, because
Please.
I think it's important, and I've seen a lot of the headlines and the stories and the concerns that people are raising about this. But to me, as a soldier and as someone who has been deployed to different war zones in the world, and I have friends who are buried there at Section 60, what is more outrageous to me is that there wasn't universal coverage of the momentous day of the third anniversary of the loss of these 13 Gold Star families, and the outrage that they feel that their loved ones are not getting the kind of coverage and memory that their great sacrifice deserves. That is what everyone should be outraged about.
Well, yeah, we have covered the horrible, horrible events 3 years ago, and have done so several times. Over and over again. So I appreciate you also talking about their memories, because it is important. Before you go, you said in an interview this week that you were interested in serving in a Trump administration, potentially as Secretary of State, maybe Secretary of Defense. Have you discussed that with Donald Trump directly?
No, I haven't. You know, it's important for us right now to point out the difference between Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump. What kind of president and commander-in-chief they would be. And really the leading concern that I have is about this, about the contrast between their positions and their records, and the fact that as we sit here today, President Biden and Kamala Harris have us embroiled in wars in 3 different regions of the world, have us closer to the brink of World War III and nuclear war now than ever before, according to the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. And this should be of concern not just to Republicans and Democrats, it should be a concern to all Americans, because what's at question is our ability to have a future and to live in a free society where we can be peaceful and prosperous. This is personal for me, as should be personal for all Americans, because it is our future that's on the line here in this decision that we as voters have to make about who we want our commander-in-chief to be.
Former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, thank you so much for being here this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dana.